Congratulations, everyone. As you shuffle on in, you have discovered another meta egg, and this one's kind of one of those rare little. I'm kind of distracted, Bill. Why aren't you on camera?
I'm not on camera because I have trouble doing these shows on camera. I can't think the same way.
You can't think the same way, so you're trying to get into the right headspace, right?
Well, I obsess about Marshall McLuhan, right?
Go ahead.
So McLuhan said about the telephone is that when you're on the telephone, the human being doesn't have a body because everything is being communicated through sound and your presence is in the place of the other person and you lose your body. And he says it creates a kind of extra sensory perception. And I like when I feel like I'm off camera doing these shows live, the body is dissolved into the conversation and I achieve that kind of extra sensory perception. But if I'm looking at my face, or if I know my face is being looked at, then this artificial body is kind of projected out there. And I think it limits it. At least that's the way I feel. It kind of limits.
I
Plus
relate to what you're saying. That's dope.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference. I remember talking to like your peers on the phone before there were cell phones, where you had to wait. You had to like tell somebody, "Oh, I'll call you at 6 or whatever." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you would totally lose. Like there was some sort of euphoria being on the phone, like wrapped in the cord or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you're paying more attention to what the person is saying. And when you're on like a live, there's like a certain amount of like a personality change when the camera's involved.
Yes.
And you're so much more self-aware. Like sometimes, you might even catch yourself staring at your picture more than the other person's picture because you're like worried about what you look like to them. And when you're on the phone, there's none of that.
Yeah, it's an anti-mirror, right? Like when you're looking at the mirror, that's one thing, but when you're looking at your video projection of your face, it's your disconnected body, but it's not tactile like a mirror. It doesn't have the same kind of effect. I always think about the stereotypical image of the teenager on the phone that you used to see in sitcoms. I also kind of think of like Mad Magazine, where the teenager starts the phone conversation, but by the end, they're like on a chair upside down and their body is in anti-gravity, right? It's like twisting and turning, and you don't have that freedom when you're on camera.
That's amazing.
So I kind of like the floating nature of just the voice only, because like especially when we're talking about certain themes and certain ideas, like my face contorts when I'm trying to get to a certain thought in the immediacy of a show. And if I'm like looking at myself be all weird on camera, then I just, it slows it down. So
just say you had a long night, bro.
Well, my friend, I remember when I used to work in this bar, this guy came in. He's a funny dude. And he had this script idea. I think he was going through a little bit of a midlife. But he said he had this script about a guy who had this superpower. But the superpower was only unlocked for about 60 minutes when he had a hangover. Like the moment of waking up, being hungover, and there was this golden hour of 60 minutes in his hungover state where his superpowers took control. There was like this buffering that allowed the superpower to flow through. So this is a perfect moment for me because I had a few last year.
So did you like have a few and watch this movie? Is that what happened?
So I watched the movie about a week ago. And last night I had a few Michelob Ultras. Partying pretty hard. And not to let this comic get in the way of what we're talking about, but I watched The Matrix with a Swans album called Birthing. And
Well, that would make sense.
and
So what
again,
about the Swans? Because you've hit me up with the Swans like a couple of times and a couple of different like placement or pairings.
yeah.
You're like you've used the Swans. It's just because they're sort of like cinematic, or
Well, so like they released an album in 2012 called The Seer. And so this band Swans was big in the 80s, kind of post-punk, almost like slivers of industrial, but really it was about Michael Gira and just this punishing temple of sound, right? And then in the 90s, he kind of got pulled in towards the MTV sphere, and then kind of closed up shop in the 90s. Their last album officially during that time was called Soundtracks for the Blind. And it's a 2-hour and 20-minute album. And then they kind of resurfaced in 2011 with an album called My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope to the Sky. And then they released The Seer, which is a 2-hour album. And then the album after that, To Be Kind, is a 2-hour album. And they did 3 other 2-hour albums. So there's 5 2-hour albums that they've released over the last like 13 years. And they're soundtracks. You know what I mean?
yeah, they're cinematic.
Yeah, they're cinematic. And quick story about my connection to that band. I saw them on the tour for The Seer in Chicago at the Metro. And after the show, I went outside to this kind of like parking lot area, and the van was there. And I smoked a joint with this guy named Thor, who was in the band, and the steel guitar player. I forget his name. Sorry, Christoph. And so then the whole band is out there, and I'm smoking this joint with them, and I'm telling them that I went to the theater on opening night or opening week to see The Master by Paul Thomas Anderson. And instead of watching the movie proper, I sacrificed that opening night viewing and I listened to The Seer as the soundtrack for The Master.
Oh.
So I'm telling them this, right? This album that they had released a couple months ago. I just saw the show. And then I had a copy of the Kubrick Transformer, and I gave it to them. So, because, you know, they're going to be in a van traveling to their next show. Maybe they pop it in. So that was like 13 years ago. And I've seen them live, I think about 3 or 4 times. I'm going to see them live again in San Francisco in September, which is the final show on this tour. And I've always wanted to talk to them directly about their music and movies and stuff like that. But we'll see what happens when I go up there in a few weeks.
So you watched Lightyear or Gandahar or whatever you'd say last night?
Like about a week ago.
About a week ago. Okay. And you've only seen it once. Do you remember back in the 80s when you saw this? Because I remember like renting this from a store, VHS style, and my mom was like, "Oh shit, there's titties," and it was like hiding everybody's eyes. It wasn't exactly what she expected.
Yeah, which is so funny. It's just like some animated titties. It's not that, you know, titillating. It's just sort of.
She's expecting like Disney or something. She's like, "Oh, sci-fi Disney. This is interesting." And it's more like, I mean, it's very French.
Well, I think it's very fantasy.
Yeah, but that was like popular then, though, right? You remember this is like we're coming out of Star Wars. It was 87, so it's like even past like Conan the Barbarian and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, it's very of the time. Yeah, Beastmaster,
Beastmaster,
Kroll.
yes. I thought of Kroll too when I watched it. That's good examples. But you never saw it back then? Like you never?
No, not even close. I didn't even know about it until I think a think tank discussion about the Weinstein brothers' involvement in it.
Oh, the Weinstein brothers are involved with this?
Oh, come on. Really?
Boom, there it is.
I could have sworn that was the angle of attack when I first heard this movie mentioned, was that why did the Weinstein brothers produce this strange French fantasy film?
I just happened to watch it and thought of you. Like when I watched it, and I remembered it because I was going through, I'm going through this like whole rotoscope thing, you know, like I watched Fire and Ice, and then I think this was like suggested on Fire and Ice, and I remembered it while I was watching. I was like, oh shit, I remember this thing. But because it feels like Mobius. I don't know if you're like it's like heavy metal. It's like something that you would read in a heavy metal magazine.
Absolutely. What are those like French? Think of like the French big Hollywood sci-fi movies. There was Fifth Element.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
and then there was another one released about 6 years ago. I'll never remember the name.
Planet of 1,000, of 1,000 planets or something like that.
Valerian or some shit like that.
Valerian, yeah. And 1,000 planets or something like that. But that's the same guy. That's like so Fifth Element. It feels like Fifth Element Part 2.
Yeah, Luc Besson, I think is the name.
But it's got that like very theoretical physics involvement, like with the storytelling, because there's that whole scene in Valerian where it's like like they're in two different dimensions at one time. It's almost like, which is so confusing, but somehow it works. And like Gandahar is a lot like that, because there's a lot of like, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, but it's done in like, it feels so much like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's kind of nostalgic in its feel, but
yeah, very much Saturday morning cartoon. Like animation that had, remember that there were like those two periods of Looney Tunes commercials. Like there was one where everything was drawn out so detailed and it was lush, and then they started going to like the static backgrounds.
Yeah,
where they weren't putting as much time and effort into it.
It didn't feel the same. There's like two different periods of Looney Tune cartoons, right?
Yeah, there's like the mushroom honeymoon, and then there's like the Coke and cigarettes burnout days or something.
That's like one just visually feels like an ashtray.
Yeah. Tom and Jerry, remember, like Tom and Jerry had that shift where it was just bright and the angles were soft and everything. Like if there was like food, like the food was cartoonish food that you always looked good, and then it went like just wiry and angular and just kind of cold. And
you know who I thought about while I watched Gandahar is, and the reason why I texted you is because I first thought of The Wrong Way Wizard. Like I thought of Mark Leclerc and what he would do with this movie, you know? Because as far as I remember, like the whole idea of VALIS loops, that comes from him. Is that wrong, or does it come from you?
So like I think like, okay, Mark Leclerc's VALIS loop is sort of like the simulation's version of Groundhog Day, right? That it's done on a societal or global level. So I think that like, whereas Leclerc calls it the VALIS loop, it's a lot like Jake's coining of the term synchromysticism. It was like he put a stamp on something that
everybody immediately understood. See, that's the weird thing is like when I say VALIS loop to a non-sync head who is a fan of Philip K. Dick, like they understand what I'm talking about. And it's like this word that everybody knows what it means, but I swear to God, it was like Mark LeClaire said it, and I was like, boom, I know what that is. It's like, it's kind of like you can say you got like a VALIS download, and some people don't perhaps like believe in VALIS or understand that that's like a real experience or whatnot, and they almost don't like that part of the book because they're more of a Philip K. Dick fan than an actual like philosophical examination of Philip K. Dick fan. Does that make sense?
Totally. It's kind of like Galactic Pot Healer. Do you know that Philip K. Dick book?
Yes.
So Galactic Pot Healer, written in like 1969, it was like the last book in the early half of his writing career, where there's a quote by Dali, and they're going through some paintings or something, and Dali is looking through. They gave him a collection of paintings, and they said, which ones are yours? Which ones are forgeries? Right? And so he's going through, and he's like, that's mine, throw that, that's mine, throw that. And then the guy goes, wait a second, that's not a forgery. I saw you paint that. And he goes, oh, I can fake a Dali with the best of them. So Galactic Pot Healer was like the first novel where Philip K. Dick was like, oh shit, I made a forgery of my own work. I was kind of like in writer's block, and just in an effort to keep pushing out content, I pushed out this novel. And in fact, that was the novel that Ursula K. Le Guin was like, I love this. This is great. And I don't know if that really triggered it, but he was like, I hate this. This is crap. This is a forgery of my own work. I'm just trying to push out the same thing. And so that closed out the 60s for him. And then, you have the second half. So I kind of feel like, VALIS is like his Sergeant Pepper's. You know what I mean? It's like his breakthrough into the second half of his writing.
Yeah, like some people feel one is the ashtray and some people feel the other one is the ashtray.
Yeah.
Because I always kind of like say pro experience, or are you pro or are you like not for do you believe the experience, or you think the experience was just like methamphetamines or something?
True. It's kind of like when you go to a Fish show and you're there for the first 20 minutes and you're kind of like, what is this? Really? What are we doing this? And then, you go out and you're like, well, there's beer. And so you pound another beer. And then maybe after set break, you decide, well, you know what? Maybe everyone's smoking, and maybe I'll have a toke. And then you get to this place where you go, is this the pot or is this the band? And at that point you go, I don't care. All of a sudden, the contract has been signed, and you just don't care if it was the third beer and the second hit, or if it's, the 20-minute version of a new song or an old song. You just go, I don't care. This is great. So like, is it one man's ashtray is another man's, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just identify. Like when reading VALIS and stuff, I know what he's talking about. I've gone back and read earlier stuff, and I look at it through like a VALIS lens. Like I'll see like what it has to do with his latter work in a way that he might not have intended or might be like surprised about. You know what I'm saying?
Well, just like you went through Andras Jones movies and saw the connections extending through, the exegesis is all about Philip K. Dick writing new material, but looking back on old novels to inform his new work. He's looking back and saying, oh shit, this connects with this connects with this is what I was saying. He's re-evaluating his established novels and they're informing what he's going through. So yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, that's the whole theory of why I went through Andras Jones's stuff.
Yeah.
Like, once you realize that this has to do with the person in a way, like, because I don't think that that's how Kotz is coming out at this. And at that time period, I was kind of like almost rejecting the way people were doing fucking synchromysticism, because I feel like they're doing it wrong in a way. Like, their stuff has to do with, like, well, this is the idea that I have, and this is how I link it together. But it's almost ignoring what the actual actor is, or who the actual actor is as a person. And I know people had, like, up to that point, had expressed that their theories, well, of course it has something to do with that person. But it's more like looking at Andras Jones was an experiment on, we have control of the situation. There's a limited amount of stuff that he's done, and all of the stuff is completely out of control. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you can look at it as a case study.
Mm-hmm.
People might not like Andras Jones. So, like, as a person, or because of his political beliefs, or because of how outspoken he is, or because he's a Jew, whatever it is, they might not really like him. They might have been in an argument with him. So you're like, well, I watched this Andras Jones movie, and you're like, fuck Andras Jones. You know what I'm saying? But you have, like, you ignore all of that, and you're looking at, and so we've had this argument before, because you said you would prefer to watch a Stanley Kubrick movie more than like a really ashtray movie. You know, we're just going to use that as our word for something as a loss of quality, or something like that. Like, but I don't know if Sync obeys those rules. Like, I went to, during that investigation with Andras Jones, he invited me down to a Spooky Empire, which is like this convention, horror movie convention that happens like on Halloween every year in like Orlando. So I go down there, and I'm not like, I don't think I would fall into that category, right? Of like, I mean, I like horror movies. I'm a huge movie buff, but I don't think that I would like to dress up like the Insane Clown Posse and go hang out with a bunch of other weirdos who were into that sort of thing. But when I was there, I understood that that was a culture, and like everybody was there for the same reason. And I got the same like electrical charge that you would get from like a comic book convention or from a Fish concert. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the same thing.
Like, if you go see wrestling, I always tell people, go see live wrestling. If you have this established idea of what WWE or AEW is, you go to an event and you come away completely wrong about your expectations, because it's a culture and a community, and there's a history embedded in it, and you walk into a timeline that's much bigger than just one event, right? Because everything leads up to that event and then points a finger to the next event. And I remember when Fulton invited me to go see AEW wrestling in, I think it was in San Jose or San Francisco. No, this was in Chicago. We went, he's like, I got a ticket for you. And I went with them, and it was amazing. And then he's like, you know, there's another show tomorrow night. I went 2 nights in a row. Just like I would go to like Northerly Island in Chicago, just expecting to see the first night of a 3-night run of Fish. You go the first night, and then you wake up the next day. You're like, oh, of course I'm going back.
Because this is, I think it's, you said it, whether it's the beer or the weed, or whether it's the band, you don't know. But it's like, because there is like a transmission of what someone's feeling that goes and passes through other people that are in the crowd. And it's the same thing as, like, you know, like the mob effect of all of the townspeople gathering up pitchforks and torches and heading towards the castle or whatever. Like, there is a feeling of everybody being in the same spot for the same reason, you know, like being on the same page, and it creates like this charge.
Well, just like we said, I was saying earlier before that, like when you're on the telephone, you lose your body when you're on the telephone. When you're in a theater and you're in a crowd, when the crowd becomes the object of the artist's intention, you lose your body in the body of the crowd, right? This is what the Sphere is trying to do with the Wizard of Oz, right? People don't have that sense of losing their body in a movie theater anymore because half the people are on their phones. They're not even there.
Yeah.
But people don't go to movies and leave having a group experience anymore. So this
No.
Sphere is sort of like this new technological way to present film. And they're actually, like, during the scene in the poppies, there's like fake snow that falls through the entire Sphere. There's wind machines blowing the snow around. Like, they're making this tactile experience because they're trying to get the people in the audience to return to that feeling that movies used to give them. But because of our sense ratios, the way that we've been massaged by media, we're blunted. We no longer have that pathway to that tribal unity in art. And I don't know if the Sphere is going to necessarily make it happen. I think it's kind of it's more of a snow globe imprisonment. It's a forced kind of mechanization of that. But yeah, no, it's the Grateful Dead thing. It's the Woodstock thing. It's complete immersion into the crowd psyche. Yeah.
Like, I mean, because, like, say that you watched this movie in the Sphere, and then you were like, when it gets to the big fucking brain, right? The metamorphosis or anything, like, you would be inside that thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, you would.
It would just totally, like, encompass. Like, I've never been there. Like, when my daughter turned 21, which was like a few years back, we went to Vegas, and it was like opened up the week after we left. But when we got off the plane, that was like the first thing that happened. We were like, what the fuck is that? Because it's imposing on the landscape. Because it's kind of like, the typical Vegas, LED flashing nightmare set to the extreme, because it's projecting out and it's projecting in, right?
It looks like a HD wart that has popped up on the skin of Vegas, right? If everything on the phone is viral, then the virus of the phone has popped up this digital wart on Vegas, and you're invited inside.
See, bro, like, I got way into the Tarantino podcast. I think I've mentioned it to you before.
Mm-hmm.
Because I realized he wasn't who I thought he was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that he is, like, legitimately just a movie fan who worked at a VHS store and had watched, like, all the movies. And then he's done interviews where he's talked about, like, every movie. I went to the theater and saw every movie in 1978 or 1979, he'll say, and list them off, the ones that, like, he actually remembers seeing and the ones he didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
But when he mentioned what a good movie was, and he sat there and would describe, he's describing the audience's reactions. Like, he's paying attention to what the movie does to the audience.
Yes.
Because he grew up in that time period where people would go to the movie for that purpose. And they would interact with the movie. I mean, I was born in, like, 78. So I missed, even though I got, like, what we experienced, which was like E.T. and Indiana Jones and all of those things, all of those feelings, it still wasn't as unchecked as it was in the 70s, where there was, like, real danger in the movies.
Yes.
And people, like, with Jaws, and people were, like, oohing and ahhing and talking during the movie, like, everybody was participating in the movie. And it was that going back and watching all of these movies like De Palma, I hadn't experienced him as a director before. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then going back and seeing it's like movies without seatbelts. Like there's a danger to the movie, and there's something that has been lost that kind of it sucks, because I don't know if you can convince this generation that it's important. You know what I mean? Like they would rather go check in on their social media than to go watch a movie with a group of friends and experience the movie as a group. And I don't know if
there's been like so I think it's the Rites of Spring, when the Rites of Spring was first performed as a piece, that the people rioted. I might be getting that wrong, but the idea that a symphony or a piece of orchestrated music in a music hall could create that tension to such a degree that the people would become so unhinged that a riot could break out at an orchestra hall just seems absurd today, especially if you've been to one lately. It's the most dead zone place on the planet because you can't even breathe loudly in those places. But the idea that theaters were designed to generate a frenzy, and the artist's responsibility was to control that frenzy and move it towards unity instead of dissolution. But then certain artists came around and said, no, the people need this dissolution right now. It's kind of like someone like Patrice O'Neill, probably the last great comedian who could go on stage, sense the energy in the crowd, and decide this crowd needs to die. Like, I'm going to go so far that I'm going to actually push everybody out of the room, because that's what this room needs right now. Because he just diagnosed an illness in his position of the artist. And whether you agree with that or not, and whether you like it or not, he was a comic who sensed that energy and thrived on it and knew that that was the real channel. And that's why he never broke into the mainstream, because mainstream media does not want that energy, and they want to placate, they want to soften, they want to temper, they don't want rioting. I mean, Clockwork Orange, right? Clockwork Orange was a movie designed to diagnose and to almost fire and brimstone the audience a little bit. Do you ever hear the analogy of Medusa with television?
Turns everybody to stone.
Yeah, that's like an old Sync kind of thing, right?
Yeah, sure. I could see it. I mean, I get what you're saying. I don't think I've ever heard that, but
so like in my classrooms, I have the students put their phones up on the wall. And if a student doesn't have their phone up on the wall and they try to keep it, you can always tell when a student's on the phone, because as you scan a classroom with 35 people, human beings are in motion, right? They're always kind of wiggly. But someone on their phone turns literally into stone. Their head does not move. They're absolutely, like, their body is zapped. And so television used to do
one thing. It's Flappy Birds, right? Like, have you ever played? Do you know the story of Flappy Birds?
It looks kind of like Mario, but you just move this bird through like a maze kind of thing.
Yeah, you basically. Hold on a second. God, what the fuck? There we go. So, all right. So Flappy Birds, you're basically just pressing. Am I not muted? Okay, I'm cool. You're pressing the phone to keep this bird aloft. So all you're really doing. Check. All you're really doing is pressing your phone to keep the bird floating.
Mm-hmm.
Because guy knew that as soon as your bird fell and he put another bird on the screen, that you would do this again. Do you get what I mean? It's almost like a joke, but it became really popular because there's no skill involved.
Oh, you don't have to think. You just have to tap.
Right. And then people were like, oh shit, I just wasted like 2 hours of my life and nothing happened. And and it's the same thing as like streaks. So like when Snapchat came out, you had like streaks where you would send a message to somebody every day, then you would accumulate a large streak, but you're not winning anything, right?
Right.
You just have like, and like at that time period, my daughter was obsessed with it. My daughter would she would have like 137 streaks going where she's messaging everybody. And if she got in trouble and we took her phone, she would, well, at least can I do my streaks? And
yeah.
Oh my God, I hope she doesn't watch this, but you get what I'm saying? Like it's this thing that they figured out on how to get you get your attention and get your focus by giving you a dopamine hit that really it's this false sense of value that's not really accomplishing anything, right?
Well, it's like
flow states.
It's what we used to do with the remote control, right? Before you got cable, you had maybe 5 or 6 stations, and you would get to that doom flipping thing where you would just go ABC, flip, NBC, flip, CBS, flip, Fox, flip, WGN, flip. And then you would go through that cycle. But because there was only 5 or 6 things, after a while, you're like, nothing's on. You'd get up, turn off the TV. But with the internet, you've got an infinite amount of channels, right? So you're going Twitter, and Twitter, right, is a Flappy Bird, right? The blue bird. You just keep hitting the phone and keep refreshing and keep seeing new things. And you have this like dopamine streak going. And then when Twitter dries up, Reddit. And then when Reddit dries up, Facebook. And then when Facebook dries up, YouTube. But each one has an infinite well of things to flip through and realize that, again, back to McLuhan, the medium is the thing that is connecting us. It's not what we're seeing. It's literally the tactility of the hit.
All right, man. So did you like the movie?
All right, so this is a good.
We haven't talked about it yet. We've been going. We talked about fish concerts.
So, all right. There's a great dialogue because this connects nicely. So the movie opens with that quote from Isaac Asimov.
Yeah.
All right. Do you know who Harlan Ellison is?
Oh, fuck yes.
All right.
Are you a fan or not a fan?
How can you not be a fan?
Right.
So just a quick thing about Harlan Ellison. I don't know if both his parents died or one of his parents died, but he left home at a really young age, just hopped a train. And he was a short dude. He wasn't a big dude.
Yeah.
But he left home and had one of these adventurous lives where he did so many different jobs, and he was a shit talker, and he lived on his wits. And then he found writing, right? And then he found writing, and he got a name for himself, and he was writing television. He did some Outer Limits episodes, right?
Yeah. Well,
do you know the Outer Limits episode Soldier?
Well, there's Soldier, and then there's the demon with the glass hand.
Okay, you're right there. And so, of course, Soldier was the one that James Cameron ripped off for Terminator.
So supposedly, this is where you're going to get in the weeds on if people like him or not. I'm pretty sure Harlan Ellison was sued more than he sued. However, he's got an extreme litigation like dossier, and he sued James Cameron, and there was a Starlog interview where James Cameron had admitted to stealing the Terminator from the idea of Soldier. Like he was bragging about the fact that he stole it from Harlan Ellison. And Harlan Ellison knew the guys at Starlog, because he's kind of a really whether or not he was as successful as James Cameron, he is far more influential, especially as a writer, than Cameron is.
Yes.
And Cameron was kind of admitting in this interview that he probably shouldn't have, because it leaked to Ellison. Ellison got the interview before Cameron could change the interview, because what actually hit the newsstands was different than what Ellison had. Ellison won the argument with Cameron, and that's why when you watch Terminator 2, it says in the credits, you know, this is based off the work of Harlan Ellison, but he really just has that little excerpt in the credits. And I think he won a sum of money, but the sum of money is unclear. Sorry, I know the story. Go ahead.
So Harlan said that he was on a panel with Isaac Asimov and another writer, and it was him. And Studs Terkel is the person. I don't know if you know who Studs Terkel is. Chicago columnist. But they were talking about science fiction, and Harlan Ellison was like, I'm not science fiction, I'm fantasy. And in the 80s, I think there was this big divergence between science fiction as one type of film and fantasy as another, right? Star Wars definitely, I think, was the first movie that pushed the science fiction of 2001 into the fantasy direction, because I think fantasy is a lot easier to write and it's a lot less threatening, because fantasy takes place in an alternate universe, and science fiction says that there's a field that connects all alternate universes.
Well, I think, if I remember correctly, he came up with Ellison specifically started pushing or popularizing the term speculative fiction as sort of like you're speculating what the future would actually hold as far as like science goes, what would actually be possible. And like the fantasy, like Boy and His Dog, you know what I'm saying? Like he's really the Demon in the Glass Hand, Soldier are all fantastical like scenarios that are really not reliant on actual science, but they're sort of like emotional moral tales.
Yeah, like the quantum field that artists were grappling with in the 20th century, you don't have to adhere to those rules that underlie or underpin. Like there's no mathematical structure underneath. So it's a lot more free, and things don't have to make sense or resolve. And there's no like not formula, but like there's no equation that needs to always be respected. So I think Gandahar is one of these types of movies where they're like, we love science fiction. Blade Runner is incredible, right? But it's expensive, difficult, and audiences either love or hate it.
Yeah.
Because there's this sort of cognitive action that needs to take place. You kind of have to be building the story along with what you're seeing, that you have to be involved. In fantasy, you don't have to be involved as much. So Gandahar kind of feels like, hey, let's get into this cartoon fantasy. First, it's a cartoon. You don't have to spend as much money on special effects, right? It's a lot cheaper. And then the story can just hit you emotionally or in your feelings. It doesn't have to get you in your thoughts. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have thoughts and it doesn't have speculative fiction in it. But it's a way to push content that could maybe make a profit very easily. And so I think when you see the Weinsteins involved in Gandahar, I think it was their first attempt to try to say, hey, we spent $5 million on this and we made 10 million. We doubled our money. What if you gave us 10 million? Maybe we can make 20 million. And it's their attempt to kind of build up that ladder into the empire that they eventually had. Plus, I mean, it was a French movie that they adapted for English audiences. Like the amount of work that they had to put into it was nothing. They just got a bunch of famous people to lend their voices to it.
Right. I mean, right. I just feel like, I don't know if it's like it depresses me or something. It just feels like there's not going to be a turnaround on how people like absorb this stuff. It's going to probably decay more. Like, I almost feel like talking about this movie would have been better if we would have done it 5 years ago, because I'm not sure people are going to find it, or it's not going to be accessible. Like, I don't know.
Well, I don't think it's a very good movie.
I can understand that. I mean, it's like it's a little ashtray-ish, or is it? I mean, it's a B movie. But what it's accomplishing is the same thing that, say, manga is accomplishing today, right? Because like the French and the Japanese went through this time period where they were very inspired by what America was doing, but they couldn't afford to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So you have like all of these, there's a lot of like Japanese filmmakers who are very famous now, but they started out doing comic books and stuff because that was a cheap way of accomplishing their fantastical ideas because it was too expensive to do it otherwise. So I mean, all animation to a certain degree is cheap. And then you're dealing with individuals who are, executives who are trying to put their name on a piece and trying to make decisions while you're making it, especially in America. But if you're in France, you can make this beast. You get what I'm saying? And then the Weinsteins just come and scoop it up.
Well, I think that the French and the European audiences are more receptive to new movies that aren't on pre-established franchises. And the amount of money that American studios have to spend on production, on famous actors, and promotion, that they can't take chances. Like the biggest chance anyone has taken in the last 25 years, I think, is probably Avatar, to return to Cameron. Right. So he did some hero's journey movie, but instead of taking the storyboard that had already been built out in the graphic novels and the comic books, he just went ahead and created his own new universe.
Right.
And I remember before that movie was going to release, he threw the gimmick of 3D on it, but the 3D was dope, especially if you went to IMAX. But people like, this is going to flop. And I remember seeing it and I said, this is going to make $1 billion. And people were like, nah, I don't see it. I was like, did you see it? And they're like, no, I didn't see it. I was like, you really think the commercial you saw on TV or the clip you saw on YouTube, I don't even know if it, but like, you have to go there. You have to, like, in the audience, that 3D, it had that moment where the crowd was in awe. It felt very Star Wars. But that wasn't a pre-established character, right? It was a brand new thing. And
it was bold. It was like, what the hell is going on? And so psychedelic. And I mean, it's very Gandahar. Like, I mean, it's fantasy, bro. Like
it is
fantasy. But Cameron is sort of like this weird scientist. And like, in the whole story of, I'm a big fan of Ellison, but that doesn't detract from my love of Cameron. You get what I'm saying? Because Cameron, there's a lot of stuff that he's given us that we weren't going to get from anywhere else.
Yeah.
And because the guy's attention to detail, and is almost like he designs the ships, and the ships have schematic. It's not, this is a cool drawing. Let's just, put a camera in front of a guy in a cockpit. He's like designing the ships.
Yeah.
So it seems like a real world that's lived in and sort of engineered correctly. And I mean, that just adds to this whole, but I mean, I know when I saw the new Avatar, that was one of the few crowd experiences that I had with my kids, taking them to a movie, where they're like, we're coming out of the theater and they're talking about it. Like, they're making their accents and saying quotes from the movie, because they had somehow generated this relationship with the characters. And the however long that movie is, a 4-hour movie or whatever, like we're walking out of there and they're like friends with the kids that were in that movie.
Yeah.
Which was, it was like something like you're kind of taken aback because you're like, how did he do that? And why don't people do that anymore? Well, I mean, listening to Quentin Tarantino talk about this is probably the worst time period for making movies since the 50s because of the whole McCarthy era. What will you call it? Like repression or whatever that was going on, the self-editing that had to be done. And then you get the 70s are a little bit more free, or the 60s are totally like a different timeline. Like coming out of the 50s, you hit the 60s and everything's a go-go. And then the 70s is this total disintegration and like the boxed in nature of the 50s. But when we get to the 80s, there's like another sort of self-editing that kind of happens. And it's so over the top now to where either people are scared to take risk on movie to create some new little playground of thought because it's a risk financial. I mean, it's just everything. It's like fucking YouTube right now, you know, like the algorithm doesn't care about you unless you make a video every day.
Yeah, you have to
But videos aren't worth anything. Like once you make, like you could make a movie that is like, you know, Terminator 2, where people will return back to it, or there'll be 20 years where it will make money because it will re-enter into the theaters or whatever like that. You know what I'm saying? Like it is this movie that people will make or make a part of their life for years to come. Or you can make a movie every day that's shit and you just get paid a certain amount for that video, but you're not making good you're not making good content because there's no thought going into the content. It's not going to be replayed. And see, this is like with synchromysticism, I like to go to the movies and do research about what is in the movie, what is there. And I'm not detracting from those who use current events, but I don't think the current events stay, you know? Like if a movie has something to do with a current event that happens in 2002, you know, like when Peanut died and everybody's like, oh, like Hot Tub Time Machine has the squirrel, blah, blah, blah. You get what I mean? Like sooner or later, people will forget those events. And then that piece of content that you made explaining how this has to do with current events, I'm almost like over it. Because I know that the current event can be tracked by syncs or by synchromysticism, or like I've seen enough fools predict this stuff. But you can't nobody's going to return to that content because it's like dated, so to speak. It has a stamp on it on the exact, and you have to be in that current event paying attention to what's popular, being trending, or what's talking about to appreciate it. But that time's so small, once you pass it, you're gone. Like that's no longer relevant, so to speak. And I guess I mean, to me, when I watched Gandahar, it was relevant. And I immediately texted you and I was like, you gotta watch this. But yeah, I mean, and this also, like, there's something I like doing what you guys do when you're when you're creating the whole synergy between film and like what we were talking about earlier with you listening to the Swans. But that's a lot of work. Right? That's a lot of work. You do it for the work though, right? I mean, it's sort of like the act of putting those pieces together and creating that recipe is the high.
Well, so when you watch a movie, right? So this is why I think it's the work. Okay. Do you know magic eye? You know the magic eye illusion?
Yeah. Where you stare at it, but you had to stare at it for a little bit and then it would like merge.
It's exactly.
Yeah,
So it's this interference pattern that looks like nothing, but if you look beyond the flat image, the 3D space pops out.
Yeah.
That's work, isn't it? To dial it in, to tune it in. Right? That's literal. Like you can sit there for like 5 minutes. Like I just can't get the focus, right? So literacy, when you read words on a page, for some people, that's hard work, right? Because literacy, you have to look a little bit in front of the image. So you have this flat thing. You can go past the image or in front. Literacy is in front, but there's this other thing that's behind it. And so McLuhan in Gutenberg Galaxy writes about that thing in Africa where they had this film that they prepared to show villagers how to draw water from like a well or something like that. And they realized that these non-literate, not non-educated, but they were just not people of a book, right? They didn't have books in their village. So these people who didn't develop literacy didn't see the film screen in the same way because they weren't looking a little bit in front of the screen and taking in the entire image. They were scanning it a little bit behind. So there's this work involved in film album sync where you have to tune it in and there's work involved. But once you see the breakthrough, then the work is done and then you kind of float. And then it becomes this space that is not confined to the flat screen. So yeah, it can be exhausting. And so it's not something that you do to tune out or to disconnect like regular television.
Flappy Birds. It's not Flappy Birds.
It's not Flappy Birds. So like in this Gandahar, there's the stone people, right?
The people who have turned to stone, you mean?
People who turn into stone, and then there's these metal men.
Right here. Yeah.
So these metal men have these helmets, and there's this one scene where the old man has the metal helmet, and he looks through it, and it is a television screen.
Oh yeah.
So like they call television the boob tube. So there's all these organic fleshy boobs in the peaceful paradise of Gandahar, right? But then these metal men with their
they're just boobs. I mean, like they're just kind of like bumbling around. I'm like, oh, look at this is pretty. And then it was the pink lasers that got me. That's basically what happens. All of the boobs are just hanging out. It's like it's like the time machine where the Morlocks are on and I can't remember the Gelfling looking people are on top and they're all fragile because they're like unchallenged, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the pink lasers come out. The metal men show up and turn everybody to stone, but they're kind of inserting them in these eggs.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just over the top, but it's sort of like there's a lot going on subtextually. So, I mean, it is kind of like fuck, man. How am I going to say this? It's the time loop is very biblical almost. What happens in the end saves the people and I can't even figure it out. Like it's Ouroboros, right?
Okay, so in Gandahar, there's this whole thing about the future is the past, right?
Right. The mutant people say what has been, he will be and is. They talk in all tenses at once.
So like in television, you can in like 2002 be watching television and you're seeing the new TV shows that are going to be on in the new season in the fall, right? So you're in 2002 or 2010 and you hear this on your TV. Next fall, the premiere of that 90s show. So in the future, we are waiting to see a show that takes place in the past. And so you loop, right? I think most kids can talk to of our generation of that day where you find out that Happy Days was made in the 70s and not the 50s. That totally fucked me up, man. I was like, what? Happy Days was in the 70s? And like, oh yeah, it was nostalgia. Like people were pining for a simpler time. And yeah, because remember Happy Days, I think, started in black and white. Am I wrong? No,
I don't think so. I think
no,
it
was not in
feels
black
that
and white.
way. I think that you kind of put it into the same category as what you know from the 50s, like the Beverly Hillbillies. Oh man, you had a night last night, didn't you? You had hear you coughing over there.
Well, I was sick on Thursday. I was sick on Thursday because I'm back in school and I'm around 2,000 people, and the first month I usually get sick once or twice and just kind of fuck me up. But I had some medicine last night.
How is back to school going?
Crushing it.
What was up with the Dr. Pepper, bro? You sent me, and it's on your blog. If people go to ayahuasca.blogspot.com, I'm pretty sure I left the link in the description, but it's kind of important because that's where most of Bill's work is, or where he would like to be known from. And you sent me the picture of Dr. Pepper, bro. Let's talk about Dr. Pepper for a second. First off, why did you have that picture?
So, one of the things I was teaching in my math class was getting the students to read food labels in the context of recommended daily allowance of added sugar, right? So whether you believe in that or not, the recommended daily allowance is 24 grams of added sugar, right? In one day, you should only have 24 grams of added sugar. So I did this lesson on proportions, like one serving of Coke is 12 ounces. How many grams of sugar? And then what is a 20-ounce bottle? And can you convert the proportion to find how many grams of sugar are in the 20-ounce bottle? And if you go to Taco Bell and you have the 32-ounce, calculate the proportion for the 32-ounce. And so then I was saying, let's take this invisible thing, sugar, in the drinks that we have and the foods we eat. Let's use math to make the invisible visible. And so the whole lesson ended with, oh my God, in a 32-ounce Baja Blast at Taco Bell, I'm having 3 days of my recommended daily allowance of added sugar in 30 minutes, right? And so then as the discussion continued, I asked them like what their favorite drinks were. And because I had just read this report that the cola in Coke and the flavors in Dr. Pepper reset the palate. So the idea is this: when you take a sip of Dr. Pepper, you get that hit of the 23 flavors, right? So good. But it resets the palate so that if you're eating fries, the last fry tastes like the first fry. And also, the last sip of Dr. Pepper tastes like the first sip of Dr. Pepper. Orange soda won't do that. Other sodas won't do that. There's something about the cola or the things they put in Dr. Pepper that resets the palate, right? So I was curious to see what the number one soft drink was out of my students. And overwhelmingly, it was Dr. Pepper. Because it has this ability for you to escape the tolerance effect, right? It's like a time loop. The last sip is the first sip. And so while you're enjoying this time loop, you don't realize, because the normalcy of your palate and your taste buds is being hijacked, you could sit there and have 5 days of sugar in one day because you just keep drinking Dr. Pepper. And then I see this ad for Dr. Pepper it's liquid sunshine, right? that Dr. Pepper harnesses the power of the sun and puts it into physical form so you can just get that constant hit of sunshine on your tongue every single time. It's fucking crazy. And then we see that Dr. Pepper was made in Waco, Texas. So then I'm like, I got to send this to Will Morgan.
It won't let me show the vlog, but yeah, it blew my mind, man. Like, because of all of the work. But is that because, like, okay, so it's 23 ingredients, right?
Yeah.
And if I remember what you put up, it basically talked about those are all harvested. Like it was called a shot of Waco because those are all harvested from like the local area or whatever.
I don't know if it was because they were harvested from there or if it was just because it was invented in Waco. But yeah, the shots of Waco is
like, what are the
a few shots to shaman, a few shots to Waco? Are you kidding me?
It's weird, bro. It's weird.
It's really weird.
Yeah. A few shots to shaman was my old blog spot. You're like one of the only people who knew that. What's in Dr. Pepper? What's in Dr. Pepper? Because it's like 23 flavors is like the slogan, right? But what are the flavors? I don't know if anybody knows what the flavors are.
Oh, there was a sync where a couple of people say, well, there's plum. I know plum is one of the flavors.
Yeah, because it tastes like prune juice, right? As everybody says, it's basically like carbonated prune juice.
Yeah, that's what first most people's like. Maybe people have a sensitivity to plum, and that's just very loud in the 23.
Oh, cherry, vanilla, licorice, almond, blackberry, apricot, plum, orange, cola, caramel, ginger, lemon, nutmeg, molasses, and juniper. I know that juniper and ginger are both palate cleansers.
Boom.
That's why they give you ginger with sushi.
Yes.
I found that out. They give you because you're supposed to eat you're not supposed to put the ginger on your sushi.
No.
You're supposed to eat the ginger, then eat the sushi because it.
Yeah. Totally.
I'm gonna chalk Gandahar up to a palate cleanser that tastes like an ashtray. More than anything, but I'll let you go because we've been going for an hour. But I enjoyed talking to you. We need to do.
Wait, we're ending this?
Huh?
We're ending this?
Yeah, I think so, man. I gotta go and get because it's noon now. I have to go do something else. But I'm telling you, we should do this again soon.
Hold on, let me just get into one thing. Let me just close. I got like 5 more minutes.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll go on for another 10 if you'd like. We're cool.
No, I just need like I just wanted to know the confines of the show. I know you got things to do, so no worries. But all right. So we talked about Dr. Pepper. We talked about Gandahar. We talked about Wizard of Oz being released in the sphere, right?
Yeah.
You know that they're re-released,
right? To be clear, so we're like being a little bit informative about this. The way I understand it is they've augmented the Wizard of Oz using AI to both crisp up the old image and add to it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they have like wind machines and fake snow and all this shit. They pump in smells. It's just like this, whatever. So we talked about that shit. You know what movie that they're saying that they're going to re-release in the theaters is Clue. Do you remember the movie Clue from the 80s?
Yeah, of course.
And what was the gimmick of Clue?
But the gimmick had the only thing that it came from the board game and it had like 3 or 4 different endings.
There you go. The idea was you go into Clue and you don't know which ending you're going to get, right?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
All right. So you can do that, right? That makes sense. But what if you made a movie that had 4 different beginnings, but all the same ending? Could you do that? Would the audience respond to 4 different beginnings, all culminating in the same ending?
It would be weird because movies that you like, right? If you like a movie and then You go and you watch it and it's been changed, you know something's been changed.
Exactly. The teeth in James Bond, Jaws, where
Right.
the brace is on that chick. We remember that.
Right. I mean, and even if you convince yourself that it was like that the whole way, because there's also we're talking about Mandela effect, but there's also the Star Wars where it's
Greedo shot first or whatever. What's the
that's
thing?
definitely been changed, and you don't like it, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, my example was, does he say, Luke, I am your father, or that's not what he says. What he says is, no, I am your father, but everybody quotes it as, Luke, I am your father. But
Yeah.
like the things that there's certain times where it's like, oh wait, like, is there a different version, or is this like a deleted scene? I don't remember this. And there's so many different versions, like at Blade Runner's got like a whole bunch of different versions.
Yeah.
You know? And then there's like the director, or the final director's cut, or the final director's cut, or the what is it? The Snyder
cut.
Yeah, the Snyder cut. Everybody knows about the Snyder cut, but it would be weird, because you would be like, if you knew a movie and then you saw like especially the beginning of it change, you're like, oh wait, what like, this isn't the movie that I saw.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I doubt it would be real well received. I think that the fact that there's like a certain mystery towards the end of the movie, like, I don't know. You always come up with these weird thought experiences that it would be like, I mean, that's what it is. You're like the thought experience or experiment, like, mastermind. If we wanted to do this, how would we do this? Like,
like if you have 4 different endings, there's 4 different revelations, right? You're going to have a different revelation at the end. You're going to walk out different. But if you have multiple beginnings, you have like different indoctrinations, right? You have different indoctrinations, but then everyone leaves the theater with the same ending. So that you could do that, and that would be that loop, right? Because you're like, oh shit, we don't have to think of any new endings. We just create a new beginning, because we always know that it's going to the same place.
It would make you want to watch the movie from the beginning. You would want to watch it in a loop, right? You would want to watch it from the beginning to end. And then when it started again, you'd be like, what is this? And then you would get to the ending, and then another beginning would start. And then it would be like, oh, what is this? You know what I'm saying? Because it would be this thing to hook people into. But I mean, that's what, like, I keep having this, whatever I turn on, whether it be for like entertainment or whatever, and randomly it's got this whole theme of this loop going on over, and it's like in the Bible, like in the study and the work that I did with Waco, when I'm reading it, it's talking about it the whole time. It's where we get the whole idea of like the Ouroboros, because there's 2 snakes that are fighting in the prophecies. One's called the cockatrice, which is a snake that eats snakes. And one is called the Leviathan, which is like a giant, which is in that book, The Illuminati, right? Like the Illuminatus trilogy, the characters are almost eaten by the Leviathan. And one of the characters goes, shit, we're in a book, because that's what happens. Like the whole Leviathan is this idea of like all of a sudden something so fantastical happening that, you know, it's not science, it's God or whatever. And the idea of Judgment Day is that it happens over and over and over and over again. So like Adam and Eve are told to go refill the world, and they use the exact same words for Noah. So it's this idea that the end of the world's happened over and over and over and over again. And then where the loop happens from the end to the beginning. So what happens at the end just loops back around, and it's like the people from the end populate the beginning, but you're doing that with a movie. Man.
Yeah, it's like film ate the novel, right? So people used to read novels, and then film came along, and film ate the novel. And then television ate film, and then internet ate television. So in the belly of the Leviathan, you've got this like mass that has book, film, and television in the stomach of the internet. And is this going to get shit out, or is it a fetus? Is it going to birth itself into some new kind of thing? And that's what the whole question is, I think.
Well, it's interesting. The whole baby aspect is hitting me over the head over and over and over again, because in the religious books, it says that when the world ends, it's like a baby giving birth.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of this nastiness, like because when a baby's birthed, it's a massacre, right? Like
it's an apocalypse.
Yeah, everything changes. There's no more comfort. There's blood, there's tissue torn, there's screaming. It's like, it's a really vicious, like, event. But right afterwards, there's this calm or silence, and everything is like, there's a relief, so to speak, and everything's changed and new. But yeah, you're speaking to me. We should talk more often, Bill. Like, it's kind of hard. I know you're busy. You've got like your responsibilities weekly, and that's kind of like this is like your busy time. But if we could set up something again for next week, you can give me a movie, show me a movie, and we can have a whole discussion on it. I don't know if I'm ready to do we can do the synergy things now. If you want me to look at something with the Swans, we'll go back and open up the synergy film, and
all you got to do is this. All you got to do is watch this. All right. So we'll wrap this up. And this is my little bit for my blog, Ayahuasca. Right. So like, these are recipes, right? I'm offering recipes that you take these things, and they're pretty easy to mix up, but you can't pretend that you know the meal from the menu, right? You've got to actually cook it. So here's the easiest one that I can throw out to you. And if anyone listening wants to do one of these things, but again, here's the specific recipe, right? That if you want the good shit, you've got to, right temperature, right amount of time, right kind of marination. You got to follow this recipe. All right. 2001, A Space Odyssey. You need a video projector. You need to not watch it on a phone or on a screen. You need to have the light on a wall or on a screen in a room. It's totally different, right? So boom, you got 2001 on a screen projected. Take the controls. You know how you can mess with the saturation and the brightness and all that shit?
Yeah.
Detune it 2001 into black and white. All right, so now we got 2001, we got it in a projector, we got black and white. When the MGM logo fades, right? When the MGM logo fades, press play on Swans the Seer. And of course, make sure that Swans is on loop. So when the movie ends, it goes right back into the first song, right? Because the album's about 2 hours, the album is longer, the movie's longer. All right. So I've just created a recipe that sounds like the worst meal ever. It sounds so boring and so dull that's what I want you to think going into it, is that there's no way I'm going to sit here for 2.5 hours and watch this. I want your headspace there, right? So now you're expecting nothing. You're expecting boredom. Hell, it's 2001 in black and white. It's like the whole point of the movie is color. That's where your head is, right? So now you play this. So now you have to do the work of the magic eye. You need to see beyond what you're expecting and go past the screen. At a certain point, the music and the film will do this thing where you're like, wait a second, is this because 2001 is interesting or the music is interesting? Wait a second, I don't care. This is interesting. Now you go, well, you know what? I watched it for 30 minutes and it didn't work. I didn't like it. It was dumb. I turned it off. All right. Last part of the recipe. Do it again. But when you press play, start drinking. Or when you press play, have a hit, like a toke, right? It's legal. Smoke some herb. Or when you press play, have a 10 milligram edible. And you go, well, wait a second. All this is dependent upon chemicals. I finished with this. Someone wants to invite you over to watch the Super Bowl, but there's no food, there's no beer, and there's no people. It's just you and your friend watching the Super Bowl. That was okay. But if you follow the recipe, you know, buffet of wings and nachos, margarita machine and Coors Lights. Someone's got the vape pen, and all of a sudden, you don't care whether or not it's the nachos or it's the halftime show. You're there. So if you just do 2001 with Swans the Seer, and you follow the recipe, and you take that little spark to just kick yourself and your senses past the screen, well, I think you'll watch the whole thing and you'll be blown away. So,
119 minutes. That's a long album, dude.
yeah, it's insane. I was watching it the other night with Plate, and the first song, Lunacy, has this refrain, "Your childhood is over." And Plate pointed out, and I was like, I never even connected that. 2001 originally was inspired by Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the first track is Lunacy, and Moonwatcher is the monkey who makes the connection. So there's enough breadcrumbs for you right there. But man, once that album loops back around to Lunacy and you're on the Jupiter mission, I mean, you won't know where the film ends and the movie begins. It's just one place, and it's either for you or it's not. But I mean, it's a hammer, man.
Do you know that's where the House of the Holies, the Led Zeppelin?
Oh yeah,
that's where the cover comes from. Is Childhood's End?
They're telepathic children, right?
Right. Well, what happens is an alien comes down, but it looks like the devil. I mean, it's like your typical description of the devil is what walks out of the spaceship. And so it's like humanity has to get over their deepest prejudice and trust in this entity. And the way that it's described is like the children who are like special children are being born, and they immediately rush to the devil. And like, it's this weird, messed up scene where this beast looking thing is holding these little children. And then at the end of it, the children are basically climbing Mount Zion, like it says in the prophecies, to this like beam of light, to like, because the earth is going to die. And when the aliens get there, they turn it into a golden age. And then they said, we're basically going to take your children. And then that is like the end of childhood, is like the end of man's production on the planet. Like childhood's over. You know what I'm saying? Like childhood, but so what you're saying here about the Swans is like, yeah. And look at the next one.
Yeah.
Like the next one is like the mother of the world. Like there's a play going on over in words here.
So you know how the first mission to space was the Apollo missions?
Yeah.
And Apollo is the archer, and the connections to Bowman.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so in the animal attributions for Apollo, a couple of the animals that they associate with Apollo are the swan and the wolf. And if you look at the track listing on
the album, the next one
the wolf.
is the wolf.
And look at the cover of the album,
which is like a wolf.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like Toto the dog, but it's a wolf. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was released in 2012. Huh.
I remember the first time I listened to the album, NPR had well, I guess they still have a website, but they were doing this new music shit. And they wrote an article, new Swans album, and they did this write-up of the album, and it said, stream the album for free here. So the first time I ever listened to this album was I went on a walk. It was like a 6-hour walk, and I got to listen to that album for free on the NPR website, which is so weird. And
That's wild.
yeah.
Whew. All right, Bill. I'm getting blown up. I probably need to go somewhere or do something. But
yeah.
I wanna thank you because, like, you know, like you hit me up last night and I was like, oh shit, I don't know if I could do a show so quick, but I'm glad we did, man.
No, this has worked out perfectly.
If I felt a crackle.
Yeah, the crackle, baby.
The hairs on my arms are standing up about a few things you said, homie.
Right on.
Right on, right on. Thank you.
All right, Meta Egg.
What's that?
I said right on, Meta Egg.
Right. This was a bit at the middle of this Meta Egg was a little shot of ayahuasca.
Right on. I'll talk to you, man.
All right, man. Thanks everybody else. Please, like, help out Meta Egg, subscribe. It's a big help. I hate saying it, but it always helps to say it. I didn't wind up upside down this time, Bill, but I did. There was a difference in the way that the conversation flowed when I wasn't worried about what was on the screen. So I think you're right. I think you're on to something.
Long live radio. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Love you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you, man. Later.
All right. Bye, guys.